Okay, let's dive right into this. Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're tearing down an incredibly fascinating investor pitch deck that aims to bridge a massive multi-billion-dollar gap in the global solar industry. If you've ever looked at the clean energy sector and wondered why perfectly viable projects completely fail to secure financing, well, the SriWatt deck presents a really compelling thesis.
So here's our roadmap for the explainer today. We're going to cover the $5 billion problem, the physical validation layer, software beyond legacy tools, real traction in economics, building the data moat, and finally the investment opportunity.
Let's kick things off with Section 1, the $5 billion problem.
$5 billion. According to this pitch deck, that is the amount of money the global solar industry is just literally burning through every single year in the pre-sales phase alone. Think about all the wasted time, the site visits, the designs, the endless proposals, all because of a fundamental lack of trust in the projected data. It leads to this astronomical 94% drop-off rate for potential projects. Think about that. Fewer than 6% of interested leads ever actually make it to a finished installation. Talk about a leaky funnel, right? So why exactly is this happening? Well, the pitch argues that the entire industry is basically built on theoretical guesswork. Right now, project developers use these idealized, lab-tested .pan files for solar modules, and they cross-reference them with generic satellite weather data. And this creates what's known as an optimism gap. Basically, the simulation overstates the real-world yield by about 1 to 3%. It completely misses things like local microshading, dynamic dust, soiling, and thermal shifts. And financiers aren't stupid, They know these models are overly optimistic, they get nervous, and they just slap a 10 to 35% premium on finance costs to cover their own uncertainty. And that right there is what kills the deals.
Moving right along to Section 2, the physical validation layer.
Now, what's really interesting here is how they solve this. It's a true show-don't-tell approach, starting with this specific piece of hardware, the SriWatt IoT device. It's a completely autonomous, zero-net power edge intelligence unit. Instead of guessing what the weather might be like from a satellite cell 4 kilometers away, you actually drop this rugged little device directly onto the raw dirt of the future site. It sits there and measures real sunlight, physical shading, and surface heat, second by second. It captures the absolute ground truth of that exact microclimate. And this brings us to their core 3-step process. Step 1, measure. The IoT device pulls in that real-time field data. Step 2, calibrate. A sophisticated AI engine takes your standard industry simulation and just corrects it using the actual measured reality. And finally, step 3, report. The system spits out a proprietary .shri file giving you hyper-accurate bankable P50 and P90 yield numbers. By replacing theoretical doubt with actual ground truth, SriWatt claims to compress yield uncertainty from 8% down to just 5%. For a lender underwriting a multi-million-dollar asset, that kind of risk reduction is absolutely crucial.
All right, Section 3, software beyond legacy tools.
Let's contextualize this within the competitive landscape, at least as it's laid out in the deck. If you look at legacy tools, it's a super fragmented space. You've got open solar, which is great for residential sales, but kind of falls apart on projects over 500 kilowatts. Then there's rated power, which handles utility scale fine, but gives you zero consumer sales tools. And PV-Syst, it's the mathematical gold standard, sure, but it relies on this older, locked-in desktop environment with very limited CAD or CRM capabilities. SriWatt is pitching an end-to-end cloud platform here. They're saying they can match the hardcore engineering parity of those complex tools, but keep it all unified, combining that in-situ hardware validation with a really modern software workspace.
So this basically becomes an indispensable toolkit for EPCs. That's engineering, procurement, and construction firms. They get all the essentials in one spot. We're talking true 8760-hour hourly simulations, dynamic inverter clipping, bifacial gain calculations, plus the ability to auto-generate CAD and single-line diagrams in literally under 60 seconds. It even has a battery energy storage system arbitrage studio built in. But here's the real strategic kicker for investors, their product-led growth loop. SriWatt gives EPCs an embeddable B2B, B2C calculator to put right on their own websites. It captures high-intent leads directly. The software actually grows the EPC's business for them, making the platform incredibly sticky.
So the crucial point is really the numbers. Section 4, real traction and economics. Let's look at the commercial traction, because this is pretty wild. SriWatt ran a major pilot program with 100 different solar installation companies over in Gujarat, India. Remember that abysmal 6% industry average conversion rate we talked about? Well, the companies using SriWatt saw their conversion rate jump to nearly 30%. That is a staggering 532% increase in sales efficiency.
On top of that, they saw a 61% shorter sales cycle and a massive 68% drop in pre-sales engineering costs.
And the response from the users themselves? One pilot participant actually said, "The trust it builds with the customer is priceless. Showing them real data from their own roof removes almost all performance objections." And honestly, here's the ultimate proof of product market fit. A full 93% of the companies in that pilot flat out refused to give the product back. They absolutely wouldn't return to their old simulation-only tools. When your product becomes that vital to a customer's revenue stream, you've definitely hit on something big.
Let's break down the unit economics because they are looking very healthy. SriWatt is operating with a customer acquisition cost of roughly €5,000 against a customer lifetime value of €25,000. That's almost a 5x LTV to CAC ratio, operating at a 72% gross margin. Basically, this is a highly scalable, recurring revenue software business that's protected by a hardware enabler. They monetize through a trust as a service model. They charge €999 per device per year for platform access, plus an extra €299 for every single site assessment. It's recurring revenue that just compounds as the device network expands.
Which brings us to Section 5, building the data moat. This right here is where the long-term defensibility of the business really sits. SriWatt's machine learning engine creates what they call a digital twin of the solar assets. The platform continuously ingests all that pre-construction IoT telemetry, and then it cross-references it with live post-construction SCADA feeds once the plant is actually built. So over time, their neural network learns to predict the exact microclimatic degradation rates of specific modules over a 25-year life cycle. And here's the genius part. Because you physically have to deploy hardware on the ground to train this AI, it creates a massive, unbridgeable data moat. A software-only competitor just can't scrape or fake this kind of empirical data set.
18 million euros. That is the projected annual recurring revenue, based solely on current paid pilots and signed commitments. We are not talking about some pie-in-the-sky, 5 years from now theoretical revenue. This represents serious, tangible commercial momentum happening right now.
And that leads us to our final part, Section 6, the investment opportunity.
And this brilliantly illustrates why they're raising capital right now. The sheer scale of immediate demand on the table is huge. SriWatt is gearing up to deploy a €9 million pilot on one of Europe's largest solar plants. They've also secured a letter of intent for 10,000 devices from a major solar body in India, which represents about 1,500 EPC members. All told, they have signed interest for 40,000 devices. The industry is clearly hungry for a new standard. Their goal is to hit €100 million in ARR by 2027. The demand is definitively there, they just need the capital to fulfill it. So, here's the precise ask. They are raising an equity round of €2 to €3 million at a €25 million pre-money valuation. This capital injection is specifically aimed at scaling their hardware manufacturing capacity, locking in those vital independent industry certifications, and rolling out rapidly across Europe and India to capture that massive waitlist. And the team executing this vision? They're totally dialed in. It's led by founder Bhavish Bhatti, a 15-year industry veteran who actually previously built and exited a solar SaaS company that scaled past 10 million in ARR. Plus, he's backed by chief data scientist Prapti Bhatti, a theoretical physicist who architected this entire edge-to-cloud platform.
Which leaves us with this final, provocative thought to wrap up the explainer. When the friction of financing is essentially the biggest bottleneck to a sustainable future, what becomes possible when you just remove doubt from the equation? What could the global economy build on a foundation of absolute, verifiable trust in clean energy? That is the core thesis of SriWatt's pitch. Thanks so much for joining me today to break this down.